So looking at page 2 here of your practice test, these are just a couple questions. They should go pretty quick here. So determine whether each function has an absolute maximum or an absolute minimum. So that's what we're looking for. If it has neither, so there is a third option, then make sure that you write none. So I should probably underline none. And a lot of times when you're reading this, if you underline things, it helps you focus on what you're supposed to be doing here. So this is not multiple choice, okay? You have to answer each part of it here. And we talked about on page 1 with that number 5 that we just did, when it's something squared, that's going to be a quadratic function, which a lot of you call that a parabola, right? So it's like a U shape. Now, a U shape can either go like this, or it can be upside down and go like this. And what determines which direction it's going is what's out front of the x squared. So we have this x squared piece here, and there's a negative out front. That negative out front is going to flip the graph so it goes this way. So that's what we're looking at, kind of a visual for part A. So when we think about whether this has a maximum or a minimum, this is kind of like a mountain or a hill here, and there's a top to it, there's a maximum. There's no minimum because it goes down forever on both sides. So we have an absolute maximum for this first one. And you would not need the graph there, but it doesn't hurt to kind of give yourself that sketch. Okay. Part B, if we think about what type of function this is a linear function. There's nothing out front of the x, so it's like there's a 1 there, so that would be your slope. So that would mean you start with a point and you're going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1 on your graph. So we have this linear function. It goes forever in both directions. So it's going to go up forever, it's going to go down forever. So there's not a maximum to this graph. There's also not a minimum to this graph. So this one is none. Okay, we go down here. This is also a linear function. And with this linear function, the slope is 3. So it's going to look like this, except for it's going to go up 3 over 1, so it's going to be steeper, and the y-intercepts change, but still, it's going to be a line that goes up forever and down forever, so we're still going to have none. And the last one here, we have these absolute value symbols around the x there, so we're going to have that V-shaped graph. And how steep it is kind of depends on this number out front and all that stuff, but we really only care is it for the max or min part here, if it's shaped like this, or did it get flipped kind of like that parabola got flipped and it would go this way instead, because we need to know that to get this answer correct. So same idea, this one had the negative out front, so it flipped it upside down. Okay, this one has a 2 out front, but it's positive. When it's positive, it's going to stay opening up. So that's what our graph's going to look like. And if our graph is opening up like this, then you can see that there's this bottom point to the graph, so there is an absolute minimum here. And then on to the last question, we've got question 7. This is a matching. So match each function to its graph, explain your reasoning. A lot of people don't explain on a test when there's not that many questions. The explanation counts for a good percentage of what you have. So make sure if it says explain your reasoning that you're doing that, okay? So when we look at these, if you know your function types and kind of what those pictures look like, you're going to be able to match these up pretty quick. Okay, part A, you can see that this is squared, so it should look like a parabola. Okay, so that U shape. So when we're looking at the 4 graphs here, it's got to be graph C. So we're going to say graph C. And I don't have a lot of room up here to explain, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go down at graph C, and I'm going to explain it here. It's a quadratic. Or a parabola, you could even say. Okay, we learned this though in class. So then we've got part B. This is 3 to the x, x is in the exponent, so it's exponential. And exponential increases super fast or it decreases super fast. So this one with the 3, it means it's tripling every single time. And the only graph here that looks exponential is this one. Okay, it increases nice and quick. So I'm going to go ahead and explain it here. This one's exponential. So that one's graph B. Okay, then we can move to this one here. This one's linear. The x is down. There's no power to it or anything. Our slope is just 1 here. Our y-intercept would be -3, just to review that quick. But when we look at the two graphs left, the only one that's a line is graph A. So this one would be linear. And then we get to the last piece here, and we have those absolute values around the outside of this one. So that should be that V-shaped graph, and that would be graph D. So we call that linear absolute value. And then make sure you pair it up here. So we have linear absolute value, and that would be graph D. All right, and that takes care of the back of it.